as I typically don't want to do. Now where George puts the tape, of course, you can't use it, so that inch you're going to throw away. Again, what Wayne has come up with as the best matrix is 2 layers of 1/2 ounce cloth laminated in with 2 layers of 3 ounce carbon. I've tried other little ratios of just because I had different thicknesses of material around, and his worked the best. Now I'll just run this pattern over here. And if I want to make bigger than a 6 ounce tank, I just make the pattern an inch bigger. Now I got to do the same thing. I make the same pattern up for the e-glass, and this gives me 2 layers. I actually get 2 layers. And I found a cute little way, I don't know if it's the way Wayne does it, a cute little way to get both laminates on there at the same time. We'll see. While we're on camera, we'll see if it's going to work well. Now, it's a good idea to always keep this in a roll and keep the roll in a plastic bag. You don't want to get dust and dirt, and because this stuff is relatively expensive. What I found is just making the e-glass just a little bit shorter, because as we wind this around the mandrel, and we have one more improvement to that Jimmy's working on. Hasn't got it done yet. He's going to make kind of a little handle. It can be oversized in the length dimension, but not in the wrap dimension. So what I do is I cut this piece. I've laid out tin foil where I'm going to just lay the resin on. But this dimension here I want to have at least an inch shorter. Because otherwise what happens is the last piece of e-glass sticks out over the edge and it makes for not a real quality looking edge, even though it doesn't hurt anything. Okay, so we have both pieces. Now, having all the material cut and ready to go, I have a piece of tinfoil that I'm going to do my layup right on. Just to make it easy, I got to put Mr. Bird, Peeps, you're in the cage. See, otherwise I've been here and the bird has come by and stolen the resin. The bird is in the cage, waxed, prepped, laid out. I get the clamps ready that I'm going to use. All the parts are waxed. I put them in the order that I'm going to use them in. Keep the scissors handy. Keep another pair of scissors handy that already is contaminated with this resin. Clamps all lined up because I have a limited amount of time to work. I don't have time to play. I have to get this into the mold and clamp the mold in a very, very, well, a realistic amount of time. In the winter, what I'll do is I'll keep the air conditioner on just to circulate air. Put the fan on, always running, always ventilation. Have my table right underneath it with all the other resin products that I use. I have a dedicated table. The reason is I want to keep all of the stuff in one area that I'm using. I don't want to have it all over the shop. This is the resin that we use. This is the source that we get it from. When you call these people, it's good to, assuming you're going to buy some of this, there's a minimum order, by the way, of 2 gallons. And I don't know what the price is, but it is not cheap, believe me. And you have all these problem things. So this is not a hobby-related thing. You really don't want to play with this. This is really for when you get to the level where you're going to work on parts and know what precautions you have to take. Curing agent, 32, 34. And I've experimented with other products with different ratios and things, but I've come up with my own ratio system based on the tech rep at Shell. Gary is the tech rep, and he's a modeler, by the way. And he has given me a couple of things that are worth trying, and I've tried them all, and they've seemed to work real well. Now, the original ratio that we were using was 85 parts of resin to 15, and you got to do this with a gram scale. You can't just spike it. I originally started using 115 because I wanted to make the material thinner. That didn't work. And I came up with all these other ratios which I wrote down. None of them are worth anything. It's 85 to 15. That's the only ratio that works. At least works in my application. Another thing I did when I was making a carbon fiber fuselage, I was using this material and I stirred the material with a wood stirring spoon somebody had given me. The material never cures. the wood absorbs the catalyst. So you want to stir this. This is worth a couple $100 just that one, and let alone the cost of the tape. Anytime you mix EPON, if you're making a prop, a cowling, a fuselage, a wing, whatever parts we're making, we have video on how to make all those parts. You always want to use metal to stir it. And I would highly recommend the 85:15 ratio. Good starting point, unless you're going to do some experimenting on your own. Now, I made my own ratios for different parts that I'm using. In other words, when I'm going to assemble parts, I only need to go 5:1 to make a little cup. I need to go 11:2 to make end caps, 22 to 3.5 to make small parts, tank bodies, which is what we're going to make right now, 44 and 7. In other words, this is the resin, this is the curing agent. Okay, and I got all this information, all these ratios from Gary, by the way. And then once the parts are cured, we oven cured them, 212 degrees for 2 hours. And after we assemble the parts together, and the tank is in one piece and it's totally together, I re-cure it at 212 for 2 hours so that cures the glue joints. Obviously, a shortcut is, because I'm running the oven virtually every day, I pre-cure some of the parts just to make them a little more stable. Not necessary. You could wait till you're done with the tank and then pre-cure everything in one shot. I wouldn't want to use my kitchen oven at the same time there was a roast in the oven, but in my case I have a dedicated oven out in the garage that I can control the temperature on. Now, a way to make this easy on yourself is always have the ratios all figured out ahead of time. I mark up these little, these you buy in a beauty supply place, they're for hairdressing stuff and shampoo or whatever. And I always mark the catalyst with big red tape or red or something so I know. Because there have been times, and it's typically late at night, I'm working into the early morning hours, I want to do one more layup, and I'd mix the catalyst with the wrong, this would be the, and you know, I'd say, oh, no good. No good. So the first thing is to zero out the scale with the cup in place. That's usually about 3. And this is my way of and it's worked well. And then I'll take the resin and basically go to 47. Of course, I know how much resin ahead of time I'm going to use, and because this stuff is expensive, you sure don't want to just be mixing. See, there's two things happen if you mix too much. The bigger of an amount you mix, the quicker it cures, up to a point where it can be dangerous. And I've seen, I've done it myself. I've left extra resin in a cup and not been paying attention when it started to cure off, and it'll just go up in smoke. It's really dangerous, and it's toxic to breathe the fumes, of course, so you don't want to do that either. Anyway, as soon as that scale starts to move, we know we have our 44. Then we'll add 7. We'll stir it with a steel stirrer. By the way, that tip is worth its weight in gold. When I called Gary and said my part never hardened, "What's up?" He said, "I'll bet you stirred it with a wooden stirrer." And he was right. Anyway, the people at Shell Oil, I'll mention this, they have a tech line, and Gary is the guy that answers the phone. They are more than glad to discuss your project. I found them to be very helpful. Gary in particular. Now I need to go 7, so this goes to 54. Again, you don't want to get any of this on your hands. I really should be working with a long sleeve shirt, but it's so hot in here. It's much more fun doing this work in the winter when you can wear long sleeves and aprons and stuff. Right now I'm dying with the heat. Okay. Now you have the material in there. Now you're on the clock, so to speak. Now I take a steel, in this case I just use an old Allen wrench. Get in the corners, a figure 8 pattern, get in the corners, get in the edges. When you think it's stirred and it looks uniform, it'll take a little bit of a cloudy appearance. Stir it 2 minutes more. If it's not stirred, you're going to have parts of the tank that aren't hardened up, or parts of the part. And I've made parts, I've made landing gear where part of it wasn't as hard as it should be. Again, if you're a professional mold maker, right now you're probably laughing and saying, "Oh, geez, he doesn't know about this or that or this trick or that trick." But I'm not don't make any indicate that this is what I do for a living. What I did is just simulate what Wayne had come up with and put together information from several other people that have allowed me to make And I think it's safe to say that there's no